the sayings of it.
When you came down,
and the lemon tree just absolutely loaded.
I'll give that today. And the video
Good morning, councillors and staff, and welcome to our meeting.
Thank you.
Federation Council wishes to advise members of the public that council meetings will be recorded and will be available after each meeting on council's website. All care will be taken to maintain the privacy of those in attendance. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded, and by remaining in the public gallery, it is assumed your consent is given in the event your image is broadcast. This includes any filming by television cameras if attendance is approved by the General Manager or Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet today, the Bangarang people, and acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who now reside in this area. I extend that respect to elders past and present of the Bangarang nations. I'll now call for apologies and applications for leave of absence by councillors.
just read a couple out. We have an application here from Councillor Andrew Candy for leave of absence for 17th of May to the 19th of May. So that's been received. We'll table that one. And we have an apology who's Councillor Longley, and who's already had the leave of absence granted, and also from Director of Development and Environmental Susan Appleyard, who's away on a development matter.
Thank you.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor...
Sorry, I also had Councillor Whitechurch has an apology.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Longmire, seconded by Councillor Meagle. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Disclosures of interest.
I have one from yourself, Mr Mayor, being in item 7.1 on the Ballpark Caravan Park contract, and it's non-significant, non-pecuniary interest.
Thank you. Would someone like to move that, please? Moved by Councillor Meagle, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Number 5, the mayoral minute, and no items, so we'll move on now to item number 6, the General Manager's report.
Mr Mayor, this report is for Council to receive an update on the Ballpark Caravan Park contract update for the new management contract. So it's a brief summary there on progress we've made since April 2021 Ordinary Council meeting. It seeks a further resolution to further negotiate with interested parties and recommend a report back to the Ordinary meeting in May on those outcomes. So seeking recommendation there to move to defer this report into the closed session for the reasons as outlined.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Wales, seconded by Councillor Law. Any questions or comments, councillors? If not, I'll put it. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Now we'll move on to item number 7, the Director of Corporate and Community Services report. Thank you, Jo.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thank you, councillors. The purpose of this report is to present key strategic planning documents to Council for consideration prior to releasing for public exhibition. The plans that have been prepared are the Delivery Program and Annual Operational Plan, the Long-Term Financial Plan and Annual Budget, and the Revenue Policy. These plans have been prepared in accordance with the New South Wales Government's Integrated Planning and Reporting Framework. Following in principle adoption, they'll be released for public exhibition and then we'll come back to Council in June for final adoption. This year's strategic focus has been on supporting our community to prosper and grow by improving employment opportunities and improving livability within our towns. Incorporating significant new community facilities into Council's operating model and improving the robustness of Council's asset management planning and long-term financial planning so that Council is able to strengthen its financial sustainability in the medium to long term. The updated delivery program, which incorporates the annual operational plan for the 21-22 financial year, provides a comprehensive overview of the activities that will be undertaken by our Council to achieve the objectives of the Community Strategic Plan. Key projects planned in there include delivering the $10.6 million Corolla Sale Yards upgrade, providing improved animal welfare and environmental outcomes, continuing construction of the $3.3 million Corowa to Marwala cycleways, supporting improved health and wellbeing outcomes for residents and for visitors to our area, undertaking the $2.7 million Cullable Road upgrade northeast of Urana, providing improved transport links, and commencing the $2.6 million Corowa foreshore upgrade. The long-term financial plan, which supports the delivery program, also includes the annual budget for 21-22. The draft long-term financial plan has been prepared on a number of key principles. These include focusing on the strategic priorities that are in Council's Community Strategic Plan, delivering improved financial sustainability KPI results, delivering on projects funded through a range of government grant funding programs, and planning for the renewal of assets. The annual budget, with $43 million of expenditure, operating expenditure, will fund the delivery of an extensive range of council services and meet council's existing legislative and contractual obligations. The draft budget provides for a rate increase in 21-22 of 8%, being 2% rate peg plus 6% special rate variation. That's consistent with the application that was submitted to IPART in February earlier this year. The outcome of this application is not yet known, but we do anticipate being advised of that by the middle of May. So, within the next sort of 10 days or so, we should know the outcome of that application. Work has continued on improving the robustness of Council's long-term asset management planning and long-term financial planning. There is considerable work being undertaken on the planning for the maintenance and renewal of Council's extensive range of infrastructure assets. This work will be further refined over the coming 12-month period to more clearly articulate the future infrastructure needs of Council and the community, and this will inform the development of the next delivery program and the next long-term financial plan. Council's draft plans will be available for public viewing for a period of 28 days from the 5th of May, prior to being formally adopted in June. There are 6 community information sessions that will be held across the council area over coming weeks to provide further information to the community and to enable them to provide feedback on the proposed plans that we have before you. Summary information will also be provided on Council's website, and we'll be using local media and Council's regular social media platforms to ensure that the community is informed about the draft plans and their opportunities to provide input and feedback back to Council. So the recommendation before you today is to place the following, the delivery program and operational plan, the revenue policy and the draft long-term financial plan on public exhibition for 28 days commencing the 5th of May, to invite submissions from the community in relation to these documents throughout that exhibition period, and then to receive a further report after that period closes, addressing any submissions that have been received and proposing adoption of final plans.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Thomas and seconded by Councillor Law. Questions or comments, councillors? Councillor Thomas.
Thank you to the team for the journey thus far. We feel like we've all been in training, pre-season training, to get to this point, and I think the way that you've done it has been an excellent way to get us here, because it's given us opportunity to review a huge amount of information. I must admit at times it has been information overload, but it was certainly a good way to do it, so thank you very much for doing that. I really enjoyed seeing the ratios, considering that some of us in the room had some training in and around some ratios, so I was able to do a bit of comparison there, so that worked out really well. I just have one question for you. In your citation, it says the delivery plan is a 4-year rolling plan that spans with the council election term. I was under the impression that our next election term is only going to be for 3 years. Is that correct?
Councillor Thomas, yes, that is correct. Sorry, the regular program is a 4-year plan, but with council elections due to be held in September this year, it will be a 3-year term before the next council elections are held. That's due to the postponement of council elections because of COVID last year.
Thank you. Councillor Longmire.
A couple of questions, if I may, to the Director. In regard to clarity, if we obviously put this out for public exhibition today, in regard to the delivery program, operational plan and the revenue policy and the long-term financial plan, we come back for the June meeting, I think it is, after submissions have been received and adjusted, whichever way. We come back in the June meeting and we adopt that opportunity to put in position. Now, the question I'd ask is, with the draft of long-term financial plan, because we go through the process of this today and then we adopt it, if so be it, in June, so we're actually locking in for 10 years everything in regard to, say, the revenue side of the equation. Is that how I see it? We've locked in, or when we have the elections in September, is it an opportunity under the legislation for council to change that in the forthcoming council? There is, yeah. So what we're looking at today is something that, for people, the first instance is going to be, and I know out in the farming sector at the moment, they're looking at how it will affect them. In the short term, they've accepted and got on with the special rate variation and an understanding. But the one that will come into their focus, obviously, will be the increase over the 10 years. Because if you sit down and do the numbers, which I did a few, and I'm not that smart, but I think in 10 years' time, most people will be paying twice as much rates as they are today. Now, that's something that'll focus on them, because it always does. You can't help it. Their long-term financial planning is important too. Some of the variables that get included in this, especially, and I speak particularly on behalf of the farming sector, the unimproved capital values, which will happen certainly on the journey. I think the next opportunity is probably a couple of years' time. I could be wrong on that one, but it's been done. And one of the things that's a big variable is the valuation of farming land that's just gone mad at the moment. Now, a lot of people will understand that that's good for their borrowing capacity. And let's not forget we're coming off the factor of a 2-year drought, and then we've had a good year. So it's still in people's minds about the cost and everything else that goes with it, running the farms, even though their properties are worth more money. But some of that, in fact, a lot of it's been driven by outside money, got family farms buying their neighbour. In fact, it's got to the point where some of the bigger areas in our shire on the market at the moment and won't be able to be attuned to local neighbours buying it because it's a corporate structure, and my understanding is that it will be assembled and sold as such. So what we've got to be careful of is that knowing that going forward, that under the documents that I read, agriculture, fishing and mining is the biggest income and economic value for our council by a mile. Well, we've got no mining, we've got no fishing, only the blokes of a weekend. So the agriculture farming sector is a big part of our journey going forward. And I think, and I read a document that was sent to us last year through the General Manager from the New South Wales farmers in regard to their scope on just what I'm commenting about. And one of the variables in the process is certainly a base rate, and the other one is also the ad valorem. I think in some of the instances going forward, like let's not say that the farmers aren't prepared to pay the extra, but it then becomes part of the other side of the equation in they want to see better amenities, especially on their roads. And we're very much aware of that. We've got a roads committee and all the rest of it. But the other comment that I bring into position is that from the April meeting, if we look at our works order, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you look at it where we've done so many projects and we're still doing projects, if you look at the bottom line, where we've got the actual current budget, the yield, the commitments and the remaining budget, we're sitting at nearly $1 million overspent. And that's one of the corrections. If we're going to go forward with these rate increases and for us to sell it in the next month, in the long-term financial plan especially, we've got to be able to convince these people in the rural areas that we're going to pull back in tighten our belt on our overspending, and we're going to do some good work as far as the road delivery, service delivery. We have to, if we're going to convince them. So with those few comments, I think it's important that going forward, we get an understanding and complete transparency with the people. They're very busy at the moment. They don't have much time to read and go on with it, but they'll come out of the woodwork, I guess, if it rains or whatever, to have a spell. They're going flat out at the moment. But I think it's important for these comments that I make that it's taken in perspective that really, yeah, the farmers are doing their bit, they're doing their bit for the Shire's economy and the rest of. And when we go back over the journey, I certainly supported the advocation and advocated for the amalgamation. And having looked at that, because we've got the funding that's come through, we've upgraded all our facilities, and especially the one next door, right across the board. So in the journey, I feel a little bit guilty when I see the overspending that we've got on our budget items. That, you know, what's going on? Are we putting the rates up because we've overspent? Well, we've got to just pull our belt in a bit and get on with it, but certainly if we work together we can make it work.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Excuse me, Mr Mayor.
Would you like to reply?
If I may.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Longmire. Just a couple of things there that you've raised. When you talked about locking in long-term financial plan, adopting final documents in June locks in the annual budget and the annual operational plan of initiatives. So effectively, it provides direction to council officers on what we're going to deliver for the next financial year. The long-term financial plan is about projecting where we think things may go based on the information we know today with respect to a range of things, which includes our asset renewal needs. So those future years are not locked in, but there's still significant work that needs to be done to better understand those infrastructure needs and to engage with the community on what those infrastructure needs are and what their expectations are. So there's significant work to be done over the next 12-month period before any future rate increases are locked in. So with respect to the overspends, I would need to take that on notice, Councillor Longmire, because I don't have that report in front of me to be able to respond, but I'm not aware of any expenditure that is overspent by $1 million. And so I think we probably need to come back to that one and provide better detail in that report so that councillors have a level of comfort with the controls that are in place. That is something that is top priority for the council administration, to make sure that we deliver the services that council is seeking within the budget that has been approved by council. So that continues to be a top focus of ours, and I would like the opportunity to be able to come back perhaps at the next council meeting and provide a report to give you a greater level of comfort with respect to where we're actually tracking against budget.
Thank you for that.
If I could just make a quick comment. I've had a lot of thinking about the whole subject of finances and council and where we sit. And my first comment would be the mergers. We've all heard the address by the professor saying that it was costing 16% more for merged councils to operate than single standalone councils. But we are merged and we're working together to reduce our costs and make it as efficient as possible. But the problem, a lot of our problem is, you could talk about $1 million, I don't believe, overspend, but I could, if you took depreciation out, that would be quite underspent. So there's an artificial figure that comes in there that puts us in the deficit and puts most councils in the state in the deficit every time, including our neighbours. But I think the pressures that come on council that aren't out there and not in everyone's face, and we've got to look after all our communities, and that's what we're here to do, to represent our communities, whether it be our farmers, our townies, and give them the best services we can within the budget. So I see that the challenge for the next council is to sculpt that budget to deliver all the services and try and keep up with the pressures of the New South Wales fire levy, which is very important, especially for our rural communities. You get a fire in some of those paddocks at harvest time, and you need that protection in place. But it comes in, it's a massive cost for councils to address, so we meet that. And we're trying to increase our roads budget all the time, but as everyone realises, our rates are almost even in that 46% of our rates come from residential, 44% from rural, and then the 10% from commercial. So, roads cost a lot of money. We rely on outside finances predominantly to build our roads. So I see that the next council and the challenge is to tweak all those bits and pieces to get a good level of service that everyone's happy with, but also have a nice sustainable bottom line at the end of it. And I think, you know, we're very lucky because we talk about, you know, our rates, we're starting at the bottom with our rates to a degree. We all know that. It's pointed out that we're one of the 10th lowest rateable councils in the state, and that came out with an affordable, one of the most affordable councils to live in because of our rates and our costs. So at least we've got a good level, and it's a good starting block for us, so we can build it up and work together with the public to get it right. And I think that's the big job, as I said, the future council is to get it right, work through it all, and it's so important to have these finances that we've been given from our director and her team, such a good scope of finances that gives us the information to make good judgment on. So I think it's not a tough time, I think it's going to be a good time, but having said that, I still think my prediction for the future, for whether it be local government or whatever, is going to be tough enough, because we've seen the effects of COVID, bushfires, floods, everything that you could possibly throw at you, we've had it, and a lot of pressure on finances generally in the country. So I'm confident we'll come out on top, but there'll be some work to be done, and we just have to deliver the best outcomes, and that's what we're here to do. So thank you.
I'll just make a couple of comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to endorse those as well from what Joe introduced on it, but the work of councillors and staff in presenting this budget going forward, and agree with the comments from Joe about the long-term plan. But it's important for the community to understand that it doesn't lock us in for 10 years, but we need to have a clear, at that higher level, pathway of the next 10 years, because prior to 2012, New South Wales councils didn't have long-term financial planning until this IPNR came in, so it was really just a 3 or 4 year outlook, and we need to have really, as council, a really strong hand on where our cash is. So it's all right to improve each year on our asset management and things like depreciation and those conditions and that, but really without cash, you can't go forward. So I think that's where, to me, the work we've done over the last couple of years is to get that really strong roadmap going forward on the long-term journey for the 10 years on our financials, and there's some levers in there that we have talked about, but that's essentially, it's the long-term plan's like a roadmap, but there's a lot of different ways you can get to there when you zoom in and get a bit closer. But certainly that next year, the highlights for me, obviously we've talked about our capital work program, not only with our sale yards, but there's other things, the recent road funding as well, our water and sewer. I just don't want us to overlook those great work that will go forward in this next budget. Our ongoing service delivery is really high standard, and people recognise that across our areas, our sporting grounds and our open space. So we're, as the Mayor said, we've had the challenge of the local government elections. That's another big cost for next year that we don't normally have, our fire and emergency services levy. So the staff have done a really good job of looking within our own budgets as to how we can do away with some certain things that I think the community won't miss greatly, but still continue on with those great social and economic and other areas that we do a lot of programs and services in, while still focusing on our core infrastructure, like Councillor Longmire said, with our roads. The great work that the improvement strategy on roads is coming forward with, and the roads committee, I think, is going to be really important in the next few years as we work forward as to what the increases look like if we want to keep this service level up. And I think that's where the community want us to go. And really our largest capital work beside us here to come in $500,000 under the budget on that one, I think is a great example of when we put our, we've come off the top of a massive capital work program with all those community grants, and the credit to the last 4 years of getting all that done. But I think we're all looking forward to, just slowing the pace a bit on our big ticket items and getting back to a lot of our core work. So I think this budget does deliver on that really well. And just finally, I think the community engagement we're planning across the next few weeks is going to be really important and valued by the community to get back to those halls and have some of those meetings, as well as some really good online focus, because we've learned through COVID that more and more people are looking to get online their own time and see what our budget highlights are and what does impact on them. Agree again with Councillor Longmire, they want to know what their future does look like, but that's as much as a new community strategic plan or a review of that early next year and going forward. So I just wanted to pay credit to Joe and the team and all directors and managers down. We've done a heap of work to get us to this point, and as Councillor Thomas said, the councillors have been taken along with it, and we really look forward to the next few weeks of exhibition and getting that feedback before we come back in June to adopt the final plans.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Neagle.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just briefly to endorse probably some of the comments of all the previous speakers. First of all, as you stated, we're one of the lowest rating councils. Secondly, we've had increased costs because of the fire levy this year. The redistribution of state or cost shifting from the state in terms of libraries and other facilities that keep increasing the cost of operating the council. The fact that we do have some big ticket items coming out in the next budget, and that somewhere along the line we have to fund all those things that the state is no longer willing to fund. So there is going to be a requirement, I believe, for the ratepayers to bear some of that burden. They already, we've asked them for that with the special rate variation for the pool, which I think will be a magnificent facility for generations to come. We're starting low, we've done, and once again, congratulations to the Director and her team for all the work they've done in trying to reset us with a path going forward and understanding how we can perhaps not be as reliant on grants and external funding, and we can stand a little more on our own 2 feet. And I think, to Councillor Longmire's comments, if we can demonstrate, and this is the key word, we need to demonstrate the roads and infrastructure improvements that will come as a result of the extra contribution that we're asking from the ratepayers. But I believe that we've got to a stage now where we've got a good game plan going forward. The next first quarter is going to be tough, I think, and I think we're going to have to knuckle down and go get our own ball a little bit and play on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Neagle. And councillors, do you think we deserve to give the round of applause to our Director for Okay, any further comments?
I've just got one small comment.
Councillor Thomas,
just
you're
in
welcome.
reflection of your community engagement program, should we actually have considered doing one online platform session, do you think? Just food for thought.
Thanks, Councillor
Yeah.
Thomas. We do have an online opportunity that is planned as part of that. So try to engage in
That's what I'm
different
thinking. Yeah.
mediums and different times and things like that. So yes, thank you.
Thank you. Nothing further, councillors? If not, I'll put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against, carried. Okay, item number 8, confidential matters. Would someone like to move us out of council into closed council, please? Moved by Councillor Law, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. All in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried.